Rebel Nation, Mark Lopresti here live from the 10X Wealth Conference at the JW Marriott, Turnberry Island, Florida, produced by, of course, Grant Cardone and Cardone Enterprises. What's going on today? Bitcoin's booming again on news that Michael Saylor added $4 billion to MicroStrategy's position. SMCI looks like it may be coming out of the weeds. Has it turned the corner yet? Certainly seems that way from the way that the stock is performing. I've got special guest Charlie Gasparino that's going to help me break down the macro minute and fantastic futures, all that and more on today's Rebel's Edge. Hey folks, Mark Lopresti here, CEO of Market Rebellion, bringing you another episode of the Rebel's Edge, a very special episode today. We're doing this live from 10X WealthCon, day 2. It's been an unbelievable event. Pete and John and I were on stage yesterday in front of an audience 1,400 strong. My friend Charlie Gasparino here, emceeing along with Grant Cardone, some unbelievable top-flight guests and luminaries that you've had the pleasure of interviewing. How's the event been for you so far, Charlie?
I mean, I love it. It's fun. It's interesting. It's a learning experience. I could listen to Bob Duggan all day. I mean, he's created a lot of wealth over the years, and he's also had some tough times, and he went through that today. And I think that's kind of one of the sort of takeaways of the conference is that none of these guys were just rocket ships straight up.
Yeah.
Even Elon Musk is good as well as he's doing now. Had some bumps, a lot of bumps along the way. Bob Duggan did, and he's now worth multiple billions. I'm sure you have. I'm sure Grant Cardone has. And but that's part of capitalism. You know, you learn from your mistakes, and I think that's one of the key lessons. And it's what I tried to tease out of every one of the people I interviewed. I interviewed Don Peebles, a big time real estate investor. You know, Don's a smart guy. Anthony Pompliano, he's big into Bitcoin and other investments. You know, everybody's hit the skids there a little bit, and they learned from it. And I think that's one of the big takeaways here.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt. All right, so let's get into the macro minute. All eyes this week, folks. We got a lot of earnings coming out. We have a lot of economic data. Traders trying to figure out whether or not the news has been a little bit too positive for Jay Powell to deliver the cut that we're all hoping for under the Christmas tree, maybe a little bit before the Christmas tree in December. And we're seeing some movement on gold, on the 10-year on that. But Charlie, what are you hearing from the traders that you talk to? Is that December cut really at risk? And do we expect to see gold, the 10-year, and some of these things trade accordingly?
And what's interesting, as they're debating that, there's the overhang of who's going to be Treasury Secretary,
right?
Which is this long. It looked like it was we actually broke the first story on Fox Business. Ellie Terrett got the tip. We confirmed it last Wednesday, or this past Wednesday, that Scott Bessent looked like he was the guy.
I thought it was a done deal.
And it was, and then it wasn't. And now Trump has literally opened it up. The president-elect Donald Trump has literally opened it up. And, you know, there's other players. There's Mark Rowan of Apollo. There's the guy who I think is in the pole position right now.
Howard.
No,
not Howard.
That's not Howard Lutnick. I believe that Kevin Warsh is in the pole position right now.
Okay.
Now that doesn't mean he's going to get it. You never know with the Donald. I mean, this is like Apprentice,
real life.
But I think, you know, if it goes to Warsh, you know, it'll be interesting because Warsh is a deficit hawk in many ways.
Yeah.
He's also a guy that, you know, if he was if he was at the Fed chair, he would not raise rates right now. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So all this might be, net positive for the market if it's Warsh. I think what I look at a lot, and which I'm sure everybody's looking at it, is the 10-year. 10 years up today.
Right.
Dow is marginally flat. S&P is up, not bad. There's going to be a sort of, my view, a sort of debate. I mean, markets are inherently debates, right?
Right.
It's just, what a bunch of people are thinking about the future, right? Future of, in terms of stocks, it's future of earnings growth. In terms of bonds, it's essentially a future of inflation expectations, whether they're good or bad. The bond market right now is signaling inflation expectations bad.
It is.
That's why we got a spike in the 10-year.
It is.
The stock market is saying, don't worry about it as much. You know what I'm saying? We don't think that inflation's that bad. We think earnings, and we also think earnings expectations are going to overpower inflation. So that's what's going on. Now, there will be a time where the two sides meet and one will win out. And I don't know how that will happen. The markets are totally mixed today.
Yeah, I mean, market's largely flat, right? I mean, the S&P is up barely half a basis point, right? I mean, and I think you see that. We look at the VIX. The VIX has a 15.2 handle on it. It's very, very low.
Okay,
so I don't think that the traders are looking until we get NVIDIA earnings Wednesday, right? This whole Blackwell chip, which is their super GPU. Because the next thing, folks, as you all know, because you watch this show, is graphic chips for AI. It's one thing for AI to process text. It's another thing for AI to review, process, and respond from graphic images and give a graphic response. That requires like 15 times more power than a chip that's digesting AI. It's in text only. So I think we're waiting to see how NVIDIA's earnings come out. I think we're waiting to see what this Treasury Secretary pick is. By the way, folks, I'll be on News Nation at 4:15 Eastern Time today, covering that story for that network, talking about what we think, talking to experts like Charlie here at 10X Wealth about what President-elect Trump is going to do for the Treasury Secretary pick. Charlie, you've got more people to interview. You got to get back on stage. It's been a pleasure having you.
Actually, I don't have to get back on stage, but I don't have to talk to you all day.
You don't have to, well, until tomorrow for the Rebel Mastermind.
Yes.
Awesome. Charlie, thanks for being on the show. Okay, folks, next up, we're going to bring Justin Nugent on. We're going to cover the stocks for the day and tell you what's moving markets. We got lots of unusual and some names that we know and love. Justin, first one on the list, ATAI. This is a biotech name you've been following. Tell us what's happening.
We talked to Pete on Thursday on the Rebel's Edge about ATAI, and he said these stocks, these biotech stocks that we start to see unusual options activity in, can be very dangerous for short sellers and very, very beneficial for buyers. That's what we're seeing today on Friday. After we talked about it, this stock popped something like 17%. Today, it's up. It's pulling back a bit off of that $2 resistance. Personally, I'm not looking at this pop as a chance to take profit. I'm looking out to all the many, many trials going on throughout the year. If you have an ailment, whether it is anxiety, depression, PTSD, schizophrenia, those are 4 things that this stock, this company, is looking at biotech treatments to try and help cure, fix, or help people work with. I think that that's a big reason to look at the options in this name.
Are we talking psychedelic treatments?
We are talking psychedelic treatments. We're talking about MDMA as well for anxiety and depression. We're talking about sublingual DMT for PTSD. We're talking about a variety of other drugs as well. And I want you to just focus on what this stock could potentially do if one of these trials comes through with very, very promising results. They've been up over $6 before.
And we had unusual in this name?
Yes, we do. We had it twice. We had it back to back at about $1.50. So $1.50 and I think $1.43 they came in for the February options. They're still in.
Very nice, very nice. All right, we got a lot to cover. Let's talk about much beleaguered SMCI. Supermicro that's not been so super after their auditors resigned, basically saying they can't support the previous filings that this company made. Lots of talk about them being delisted. They're scheduled to file a plan with the NASDAQ today to maintain their listing and the stock. And by the way, full disclosure, we own it. We went into the stock. John and I in the family office portfolio went into the stock on Friday just before the close. Stock up 15% since before we went live. I don't know. I think auditors will resign in this environment at the drop of a hat, right? Because of liability and this and that. There's a reason why it used to be the big 5 and now there's only 3, and right, it's a melting ice cube in terms of a business model. There's a lot fundamentally that's good about this business. If they can get this NASDAQ plan filed today and actually get current with a new auditor, does this thing come back up to where it should be? I mean, this stock has just been absolutely crushed.
Yeah, I mean, a few questions. So where should it be? Because a lot of people hated it up at 120, right, post-split. Second thing, huge shout out to you, to John, to Pete, because everybody was right in this other than me, all of you 3. We talked about this on Thursday. Pete said, is it time to buy the dip? And I said, I wouldn't touch this with, quote, a 1,000-foot pole. I was wrong. It's up. So great work. I think it could pop here as long as they can get their stuff together. This is the type of news that we can forget about, move on from, and momentum buyers will probably start pumping this thing up again.
Still some work to be done, certainly not out of the woods. If you have profit in this, if like John and I, you joined and jumped on this bandwagon on Friday or perhaps even this morning, if you get in on the open, take profit, because the news on this, if you get one, they failed to file the report today with the NASDAQ, or the NASDAQ doesn't like the color or the cover of the binder that it got sent to, this thing's going to give all those gains back. And where should it be? I didn't like it at 120 either. This is probably a $50 to $60 stock. That's just what my gut's telling me. All right, let's move on to APLD news that NVIDIA acquiring another $7.7 million shares of Applied Digital, almost a $70 million position. Tell us what you think of this name.
I like APLD, again, because we saw unusual options activity in it. You know that's my favorite thing to look at. APLD, they were looking at the 8-11 call spreads, I believe, if I recall correctly, and they called it out just before we saw this NVIDIA investment. I wonder if someone knew something.
Yes.
No, this is cool. Two words that I just want you guys to focus on is data centers. This is something that Mark has been pounding the table on for so long. It relates to the thing we'll talk about right after this. It's going to relate to a lot of things. You're going to keep hearing about the market, whether we're talking about energy demands or anything else. This joins NVIDIA's portfolio, which is growing, of other AI-related stocks.
Yeah, I mean, stocks up 13% and rising as we go live today. We had unusual just this morning in this. They came in buying almost 10,000 of the November 850 calls. Really interesting. Right kind of in the middle of where I think our price target or range was through the unusual that we had. This thing's up 20,000%. That's even more than Grant's 10X. 20,000%. You had to hold the stock for 5 years to do that. But man, if you held on to this name for 5 years, you were richly rewarded. All right, listen. I talked about this one from the stage yesterday. We talked about this one on the Spooky Election special. We've had unusual on top of unusual on top of unusual. I'm talking, of course, about Hello, OKLO, up another 15% today. We had unusual also today. I don't know if it was before the announcement we're going to talk about or after. They came in buying 4,000 of November 20 calls. This on news that Trump's choice nomination was announced this morning of the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright. This is a guy that is believed to be, I believe, to be a pro-nuclear solution. He's practical. He recognizes what the demand and the needs are. This gripping paradigm shift that we talked so much about, that's catalyzed by AI and data center growth. Popping OKLO today, another 15%. I mean, what's your thoughts on this one, man? Can we do it again on OKLO? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yes, especially if you have a bit of a longer-term time horizon. I said I love OKLO. I don't care if they come down for their earnings. I like the 18 level. That's one that we've talked about in the Rebel Roundup. Yep. If you listen to J.D. Vance on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, he was very welcoming to nuclear energy. That is big. I love the nuclear energy story. And by the way, yeah, you also talked about OKLO when it was $8 a share on Schwab.
Yes.
We've been pounding the table on this name. I don't think it's done.
That was in the spring, I think.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yep, that was a nice return on that one if you picked that one up. And look, folks, we are obviously happy and celebrating. We love to be right when the unusual is right, and it's right more often than it's not. It's up again big. Take some profits. Take half the position. Roll it. Do the stuff we talk about all the time. Discipline dictates action. And when you get these kinds of numbers on the board, this much green on the screen, take some green off the table, right? For sure. Now, look, obviously, neither of us are Pete or John Najarian. So as you could probably guess, we do not have Pete's Red Zone Sports today. So you and I are going to do it from a little bit of a different angle. It's a sports topic. We're going to talk about a stock. You may have heard one of my favorite people and one of my least favorite people had a fight on Friday that you may have heard about. I'm talking, of course, about Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Mike was actually here with us just a few months ago down the road at the Diplomat Hotel for 10X GrowthCon with Grant Cardone. I got to tell you, Mike's certainly been through some stuff, but a heck of a nice guy. I would have liked to see him knock Jake's lights out. Ran into Jake once at Carbone in Miami, and let's just say it wasn't a good experience. Netflix. People were saying when you saw that buffering and they couldn't see the fight happening, I had people telling me, are we shorting Netflix Monday morning? Stock opened down a little bit, but now it's up. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's proof of concept for live sports. This is a reason why they can look at doing NFL. You had 150 people tuning in to watch. You had some issues at the beginning, but they got them worked out. People were able to watch the fight. Obviously, nobody is getting 150 million viewers anywhere else. So I think, you can see this going up because you're probably going to see more great announcements from Netflix, and Netflix is a catalyst responsive stock.
Yeah, and I mean, look, nobody's going to be able to come close, right? I mean, Disney, Hulu, maybe not working out too well. All of the fast competition that's come into that streaming marketplace, and yet Netflix continues to dominate. I agree with you. I think this thing can go higher. I think it will go higher. They proved that, there was a little buffering, but it was the first time of a live stream like that of 22 million people. So kudos to Netflix. I'm not going to give kudos to Jake for winning that fight. Kudos to Mike for showing, doesn't matter how old you are, if you've got grit and moxie, you can still prove you're not too old to get in the ring. Something that we should all think about. So, folks, thank you very much for joining us for another episode of The Rebel's Edge. We're going to be joining you tomorrow in another special episode from just across the street, where we're going to be hosting the Rebel Mastermind, where 100 sophisticated traders have decided to join me, Pete, John, Ryan, Wayne, Justin, of course, a whole host of the Market Rebellion expert analysts in a live trading session. It's going to start at 8 a.m. It's going to go through the whole day. Charlie Gasparino is going to be with us live. The amazingly talented Liz Clayman, of course, from Fox Business, is also going to be with us for the Rebel Mastermind. We're going to bring a special show to you from that event live. Don't forget to miss it. Tune in tomorrow, 1 p.m., for another episode of The Rebel's Edge.